اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم انكدرت وإذا الجبال سيرت وإذا العشار عطلت وإذا الوحوش حشرت وإذا البحار سجرت وإذا النفوس زوجت وإذا الموءودة سئلت بأي ذنب قتلت وإذا الصحف نشرت وإذا السماء كشطت وإذا الجحيم سعرت وإذا الجنة أزلفت علمت نفس ما أحضرت فلا أقسم بالخنس الجوار الكنس والليل إذا عسعس والصبح إذا تنفس إنه لقول رسول كريم ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين متاع ثم أمين وما صاحبكم بمجنون ولقد رآه بالأفق المبين وما هو فأين تذهبون إن هو إلا ذكر للعالمين لمن شاء منكم أن يستقيم وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله رب العالمين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام على آل ياسين. السلام عليك يا داعي الله ورباني آياته. السلام عليك يا باب الله وديان دينه. السلام عليك يا خليفة الله وناصر حقه. السلام عليك يا حجة الله ودليل إرادته. السلام عليك يا تالي كتاب الله وترجمانا. السلام عليك في آناء ليلك وأطراف نهارك. السلام عليك يا بقية الله في أرضه. السلام عليك يا ميثاق الله الذي أخذه ووكده. السلام عليك يا وعد الله الذي ضمنه. السلام عليك أيها العلم المنثوب والعلم المسبوب والغوث والرحمة الواسعة وعدا غير مكذوب. السلام عليك حين تقوم. السلام عليك حين تقعد. السلام عليك حين تقرأ وتبين. السلام عليك حين تصلي وتقنت. السلام عليك حين تركع وتسجد. السلام عليك حين تهلل وتكبر. السلام عليك حين تحمد وتستغفر. السلام عليك حين تصبح وتمسي. السلام عليك في الليل إذا يغشى والنهار إذا تجلى. السلام عليك أيها الإمام المأمون. السلام عليك أيها المقدم المأمول. السلام عليك بجوامع السلام. أشهدك يا مولاي أني أشهد أن لا إله وحده لا شريك له، وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله، لا حبيب إلا هو، لا حبيب إلا هو وأهله. وأشهدك يا مولاي أن عليا أمير المؤمنين حجته، والحسن حجته، والحسين حجته، وعلي بن الحسين حجته، ومحمد بن علي حجته، وجعفر بن محمد حجته، وموسى بن جعفر حجته، وعلي بن موسى حجته، ومحمد بن علي حجته، وعلي بن محمد حجته، والحسن بن علي حجته. وأشهد أنك حجة الله، أنتم الأول والآخر، وأن رجعتكم حق لا ريب فيها، يوم لا ينفع نفسا إيمانها لم تكن آمنت من قبل أو كسبت في إيمانها خيرا، وأن الموت حق، وأن ناكرا ونكيرا حق، وأشهد أن النشر حق، والبعث حق، وأن الصراط حق، والمرصاد حق، والميزان حق، والحشر حق، والحساب حق، والجنة والنار حق، والوعد والوعيد بهما حق. يا مولاي شقي من خالفكم وسعد من أطاعكم، فاشهد على ما أشهدتك علي، وأنا ولي لك بريء من عدوك، فالحق ما رضيتم والباطل ما أسخطتم، والمعروف ما أمرتم به، والمنكر ما نهيتم عنه. فنفسي مؤمنة بالله وحده لا شريك له، وبرسوله وبأمير المؤمنين، وبكم يا مولاي أولكم وآخركم، ونصرتي محدة لكم، ومودتي خالصة لكم. آمين آمين. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to the Imam Hussain Islamic Center, and as always it's a privilege, an honor and a pleasure to host you all here this evening, especially those who are joining in virtually online, and even more so everybody who's here in person. Welcome everybody, great to see you all, and what a distraction you are. It's been fantastic. A very unusual 4 or almost 5 months where we've had nobody in the hall. And this evening, like we did last week, we have, mashallah, we have some fantastic attendees in the hall, and it's really great to see you all. But given 4 months of just being Sheikh and I, or whoever the lecturer is, it's quite a distraction, Sheikh, but a welcome distraction. Inshallah, you'll keep in touch with us on Facebook and WhatsApp and on YouTube. Tonight is an open session for any questions you might like to ask. Keep them clean and G-rated, maybe a little bit PG in some cases, but clean and G-rated would be best. And questions that will, inshallah, benefit the most number of people. I'm sure that there are questions that people will have that are very specific to their circumstances. And if you have those types of questions, can I request that we can organize a time with Sheikh to have that personal, that very detailed discussion that you might need for certain types of questions. We invite any questions from the floor over here. We have a mic if you'd like to ask that question yourself, or if you would prefer to write it down and have that read out instead to preserve a little bit of your anonymity, we can do that too. So whatever works. And inshallah, whoever's viewing can send those questions through on the IHIC WhatsApp, on the Facebook chat, or the YouTube chat panel as well. So inshallah, we can address most or all of those. And with that, and with your best and warmest salawat, and please welcome Sheikh Mohammed Mehdi. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allah salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Assalamu
As always, great to see you.
Likewise.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
It hasn't become too much that you've decided to run away as yet?
I can't. They've closed the borders.
Well, you can go.
I've tried.
Well, you can't even go regional at the moment yet, can you?
Can't do anything yet. Yeah.
So, well, you're stuck within Sydney.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Greater Sydney, however great that is.
Yeah.
Right now, it's fantastic. Okay, Sheikh, shall we get right into it?
I just wanted to say something
Please.
before we start. It's regard to one of the brothers was asking me, because now it's exam time and HSC and that. Firstly, a lot of the people at this time becomes very stressful. And I don't know if this is positive or negative, but last second study doesn't actually work. It's what you've built up during the year and all this patch up. It's even like when I prepare a lecture, I never look at the notes in the last second because it doesn't do anything. You just get up there and you go on what you have learnt throughout the year. Secondly, another thing you need to keep in mind, I remember one goalkeeper in the 1998 World Cup, Paraguayan goalkeeper Jose Luis Chilavert, when they had to play against the French national team. They asked him about the pressure and the stress of playing against France, looking at the lineup. He said to them, that's no pressure. Pressure is when you have a family to feed and you have no money to feed them. That's stress and pressure. You're living in a world right now, you go in there, you do your best in your HSC. If you don't get the mark you want, there's always second and third chances along the way. There's always prerequisite subjects that you can take in university and always advance. I know many people that changed career midstream. I know someone that was an engineer, then he didn't enjoy it and he became a lawyer later. He just changed, went and did something else. Don't let the stress overcome you. And I was telling the brother one thing, like if you are doing a watertight science, which is like physics or a mathematics, the answers are either right or wrong. The ones you should be stressing about are the English and history or any form of essay writing, because they're subject to the teachers and their prejudice when it comes to marking. So whatever is the outcome, just as a word of advice, don't let it stress you out. There are bigger problems in life than letting this get to you. And inshallah, may Allah assist you all in your exams, and on these nights, inshallah, that you attend, may Allah give you blessings, and inshallah you get the right outcomes that you want. So I just thought I'd say something before we begin.
No, Sheikh, thank you very much. That's a really good reminder. And this year, even more than last year, has been more stressful for those who are taking exams, whether university or HSC, but especially HSC. University, you can always do the subject again. It's not a big deal. You've got another semester, you've got another chance. You can do summer school. There's so many options. But HSC is a one-shot thing unless you want to go back to TAFE or repeat the whole year and whatnot. And you know, when you're 17, 18, sometimes 19, you're going through that stage. It's the biggest thing you've done, right?
Yeah.
And it's a 2-year build-up. So it's not.
Yeah.
It's 2 years out of 18 years is 1/9 of your life. That's a big deal, right?
Yeah, but you can always, like, everything can be remedied. They don't tell you that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, but they've got to dramatize it and whatnot as well. So you've got to put the pressure on. So to those of you out there who are looking at HSC this year, good luck. And our du'as are with you, inshallah. Sheikh, first question? Let's go. Okay, like I said, anybody who wants to ask us a question, please raise your hand. One of our mic guys will come and hand you the mic, or you can write it down on the paper that Sister Farzan has, and we can ask that question for you. This is a tough one. Let's start with a tough one. No, actually, let's start with an easy one. Is wine vinegar halal?
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. The question here, and this is asked often, is when people see the word wine, they're shocked and they think, hold on, and this is a good thing. Shows that they're very vigilant and aware. In the English language, unlike the Arabic language, see, in Arabic, the subject is always written at the beginning, okay? For example, if I want to say white rice in Arabic, I say al-araz al-abyad. We mention the rice, and then we say white. So, but in English, it's at the end. So I look at the very end, whether it's rice vinegar, white wine vinegar, okay, apple cider vinegar. Like if I was to look at apple cider, it's alcoholic. If I was to look at wine, rice wine as in sake or something, that's alcoholic. If you're going to look at anything, it's alcoholic. However, when it's vinegar, it's no longer wine. So what the process that takes place here, that is mentioned, is what? It's called istihala. What happens, it's changed. In Islam, we have what's called a process that changes something from being najis to being tahir. And for example, wine is najis and it's haram. But what happens to this wine, it's changed its chemical properties. It's no longer wine, it's become vinegar. Once it becomes vinegar, it becomes tahir and it becomes halal. So even if I say apple cider vinegar, white wine vinegar, it's vinegar. So therefore it's halal to consume.
And it's tahir, you mentioned.
And it's tahir, yes.
And so that
even the bottle that it's within,
yeah.
Just like when we're doing ghusl mayyit,
Yep.
the maghsal becomes tahir, your hands become tahir within. You still have to do ghusl mayyit, the one that's a different subject. Based on the transfer of the tahara within. Right. And likewise with the bottle. If the bottle has wine in it, it turns into vinegar, then the bottle from where the wine is becomes tahir as well. Yeah.
So that's for all the HSC students who are studying chemistry, that's a chemical change.
A chemical change. See, if something changes physical properties, it doesn't become tahir. So for example, if I say water becomes frozen, it becomes ice. It still has the same, all its changes its physical properties. Yeah. It's still H2O, it hasn't changed any chemical properties whatsoever. But in the case of, for example, if you had a poisonous gas like chlorine and a metal like sodium together, they make salt. Like you can't consume the metal, sodium is haram, Chlorine's a poisonous gas. Together, sodium chloride, you've got salt. So it becomes different.
Yeah.
So that has changed chemical properties. It becomes originally something that's not consumable. Afterwards, it becomes something that's edible.
Yeah.
And likewise in the case here, where something has gone through a chemical change, even if it's gone through a chemical and a physical change together, but not a physical change. Physical change doesn't do anything.
So the key in this case is the chemical change.
It's the chemical properties. It's no longer what it was before.
Yeah, and it's not reversible either.
It's not reversible, yeah. So unless through the process that God decrees it to be so. Like if I was to burn a dead animal in a fire, they become ash. The ash is tahir now, yeah. But it's not edible. But in this case, the vinegar is.
Okay, Ahsan. Thank you, Sheikh. Yeah. We've got some really tough ones already. Okay, another easy one. I'm picking all the easy ones to begin with, just to ease you into it, Sheikh. Scratchies and scratch to win. Let's throw in pokies as well and whatnot. Is any of this stuff halal?
Look, when we talk, let's take a look firstly what gambling is. The Qur'an mentions the word maysar.
So, sorry, I'll stop you there, Sheikh. Do scratchies also, and I'm sure you'll answer this as you go, do scratchies qualify as gambling as well?
It's like a branch of gambling, and I'll explain how it works.
Yeah.
See, maysar means game of chance, which basically means there's no skill involved. It's purely chance. Say, for example, I'll give you horse racing. Is horse racing permissible to bet on? It's only permissible if I'm in the race and I'm betting against the other riders. So I'm one of the riders of the horse, I'm one of the jockeys, and there's another jockey, there's like 10 jockeys, I bet with them that I'll beat them, it's permissible. It's based on my skill against theirs. But that doesn't mean I can take a punt at the TAB. I can't go and take a punt on one of these betting apps on the race. I can bet with them.
You're right.
That's permissible. For horse racing, it's not for everything. The nas we have is horse racing. I'm not going to delve any further than that.
Right, okay, all right.
All right. Now, so why is maysar haram? Because it's purely on chance. It's you and your chance. Sometimes you say, hold on, what if I'm making a skillful prediction,
Yeah.
I'm making a skill. The problem here lies where, and someone actually sent me something recently, which is a fatwa from Sayyid Ali al-Khamenei, and they've been spreading this around. Because they ask him in this fatwa, do you want me to actually read it? Or no, I'll leave it. What they actually ask him, they say, can I use these electronic applications to make a bet? Okay? Where I pick who the winner is.
Right.
See, he says as a precaution you can't. However, he says it's not haram now. But he moves on to say what? He says, however, the remuneration or the collection, the money that you acquire, the acquisition of the money, he said you need to get everyone that has put money in to concede. This is where it's difficult. That they either give it to you under two conditions. One, which is called hiba. What's hiba? Hiba is when I gift someone. For example, if I say that I give this as a hiba to you. So everyone that's taken a bet in sports bet or whatever they use has to say that they concede that you can have this. Or the second condition is, he says, it's musalaha, which basically means, it's like say I owe you $100.
Yeah.
And then you say, look, you don't have to pay me back, I'll let that go.
Yeah.
So that's what it comes down to. So in other words, it's impossible. But Sayyid is answering it. I don't think the Sayyid should answer like this. People go, yeah, see, it's halal. Because they only read the first half of the fatwa, they don't read the second half of the fatwa.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a response from the office,
Yeah.
based on the Sayyid's understanding of the law. Now, so when it comes to any game of chance, it becomes forbidden. When it comes to lottery,
Yeah.
this is where the conditions come in, because when we have raffles at an Islamic center, raffles are a lottery pretty much. How are they permissible? I need to buy the raffle ticket with the intention that I'm making a donation to the centre. If I win a prize, it doesn't matter. I'm making a donation, and that is that.
Yeah.
So how does the lottery system work? The lottery system. Let's say, I'm going to make this going to be a bit complex, but let's say I own the lotteries, and I say there's $1 million for whoever buys a ticket. So, for example, have you seen those raffles where there's a car? Everyone can buy a ticket and they get a car. And this money is going to go to help homeless people, whatever. Once again, I'm donating towards the homeless. But the prize is already set and I've purchased the price. You're not taking the losses of others.
Yeah.
Whereas in the lotto, you're actually taking the losses of others. Here's another problem that comes in. So you're taking money that's not yours. Now, the majority of fuqaha had the opinion that to purchase a lottery ticket's haram on that basis. However, there's some that permit you to sell it. So if you buy a news agency, they allow you to sell the lottery tickets.
Wow.
So this is where the contention comes in. So one of the fuqaha, I've heard this from one opinion, in the past, not the ones that are living, says that, hold on, the lottery ticket is an item of value and you're actually buying the ticket. But that's an anomaly. It's not an accepted opinion. The problem is that money that you acquire has got a question on it. So a question mark on it. So I have to then see a faqih in order to tell me the permissibility of the money. But these scratchies and all these, they all go under the same subject of gambling.
Fair enough.
Okay.
I've got
Follow-up
two questions
question.
there.
Go on.
All right. So the first, I'll present a scenario to you, then I've got a follow-up question. First, the scenario is this, that in New South Wales, the state lottery that you play, for example, the scratchies that are sold at most newsagents and now service stations and all over the place, they're run by the state government. The proceeds from that...
The biggest criminal organisation, go on.
Well, yes, allegedly.
Well, I'd be happy if we went to the mafia instead. Keep going.
Well, anyway, the proceeds go to the state government. And it doesn't go into general revenue. It goes into revenue for specific programs, such as funding health or schools and other such things, right? Does that change the equation at all?
لا يطاع الله من حيث يعصى. Allah is not obeyed from where he's been disobeyed. See, here's the problem.
Yeah.
The lottery, it is actually, you're not putting, the money is all about gambling. The whole advertising has got to, when you come to the centre, you're actually,
play to win,
honestly,
right?
when you're buying tickets for the centre, the prizes, it's not like they're giving you a PS5. You know, the prices are, you know, are things that, you know, everyday things. It's not you're actually giving from your heart. You're not getting big prizes.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, mate, $40 million jackpot, people are going to put money in. And that's the purpose.
I'd find it hard to justify that I'm giving this money. My money will go to help the health system.
Well, hold on.
No, I'm in it for the $40 million.
Haj, let's be serious. You're going to help someone who is an alleged pedophile, like Bert Newton, have a state-sponsored funeral. Or a tax evader, an alleged tax evader, I don't like to use your word, George,
thank you.
like Kerry Packer, who had a state-sponsored funeral. Or the Mardi Gras. How many times have they been funded by state money? You're a contributor to this.
Yeah, but the difference is that, for example, the
one
state
is forced. When you pay tax, you're forced to pay tax.
Yeah, that's
this
not
is
an
a
option.
willing contribution to the
That's
government.
right. But the state government will also, state lotteries will say that the revenue raised from this goes specifically to these programs, such as health or education.
And no one else takes the money, and you believe them.
Well, there's reporting and there's audits.
And you actually believe them.
Let's leave it on. Let's take it on face value.
No, I don't believe it in face value because you're talking about a rotten system. With, like, honestly, if I was to tell you, a politician, what's the chances that you're going to get a straight, upstanding citizen to become a politician?
Unlikely.
Not unlikely. It's almost impossible. Like, I look at let's look at all the Muslim councillors and politicians.
Yeah.
How many of them have done anything for the Muslims? What did Gladys do for the what's it called? Where's she from? Armenians. What she do for the Armenian community?
Nothing.
What did she do for herself and her amour, you know?
Allegedly a lot.
This is what I'm trying to get to, is when we're looking at these people in these positions, they are of the most decadent of society. How am I supposed to believe in what they say?
I'll use another example,
Yeah,
just
go on.
based on what you've said, right? The governor of New York, there was a recent election. The Republican was on, I believe, and I might have the details confused, but the governor, the Republican candidate was on the board of the Carlyle Group, and the Democrat candidate was an investor in the Carlyle Group. And they both received funding from the Carlyle Group for the election. So that goes to exactly what you're saying, that there's no clean hands in this at all.
Okay, so why are you asking me the question then?
So I'm just raising a
Yeah,
point
but I'm just saying, if we know that
for the
they're
sake
all...
of discussion, Sheikh.
Oh yeah, Haj, we know exactly what they're like. I always tell people, I go in Easter, people wear an Easter bunny suit.
Yeah.
Halloween, they wear costumes.
Yeah.
Christmas, they dress as Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And when they're campaigning for an election, they don the garb of humanity in order to get voted. If that's about it, then they just go back to normal after it's over.
Pretty much. Okay, let's move on from there. A follow-up question has come up. Isn't it your action within the game of chance, not what they do with the proceedings? So isn't the game of chance more about what you are doing rather than what's happening to the proceedings?
That's true. But we're talking about these are, look, there are things that primarily are for gambling.
Yeah.
For example, roulette is gambling.
Yeah, 100%.
Playing cards are gambling.
There's no skill in that
Yeah.
whatsoever.
All these are actual gambling. They're full haram. All these games are chance.
Yeah.
However, these now are new masail.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. The new issues. So the fuqaha, like I said, Sayyid Ali mentions there what? He mentions it's unlikely that this is haram.
Yeah.
With sports bet.
Yeah.
He says, however, or with betting on sports or whatever.
Yeah.
However, with the winnings is where the problem is.
Right. Right.
And this is what I mentioned to you. I actually, the funny thing is 20 years ago, I asked my father the same question.
Yeah.
I said to him, what if someone's really good at picking the winner?
Yeah.
You know, they can actually get the answer, really get it. He said, it doesn't matter, the money's the issue. I still remember he said that.
Right.
The money, because it's unlike going to the poker. The pokies are haram. The pokies are all based on what? They're based on an algorithm.
That's right.
It's not, it's like some people think if I pick a certain thing, that's the answer I'm going to get. Or even with blackjack, all these are based, you can't even count cards or whatever. They have set systems that they can't. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's good. You don't want to get into this.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you specifically about blackjack and poker, where if you can count cards, if your skill is of that level, but then that's
right. But if I can count cards,
you're banned immediately.
Yeah, you're banned. You're not allowed in there. So if you can count cards, you're brilliant in all these games.
Yeah.
But if you can count cards and that you can actually win money, then the second issue comes in.
Yeah, it's the proceedings from that.
Because originally, what's gambling? Gambling is purely chance.
Yep.
So let's say skill gets involved. It's no longer a game of chance. So how does it become haram? It becomes on the proceedings, on the
winnings.
The winnings. That's where the problem comes in. So primarily, that's how fiqh works. They look at what the Qur'an says, what the narrations say, and then they look at the what's it called? The winnings at the end, the final outcome.
Yeah.
Because from A to Z, it's got to be fitting in the situation.
Okay. Now I'm going to take what you said. I'm going to apply it into a different scenario altogether, right? And this is pretty challenging, and it's okay if you want to defer by not answering on this one.
As long as it's not political or something.
Not political at all. You get into circumstances where you have the opportunity to trade futures or trade currencies, and including currencies like Bitcoin and crypto, and also generally what's called speculative trading, right? Which a lot of day traders do, which a lot of people get into now because a lot of people do have got into some form of crypto as an entry into probably doing a lot of other things as well. So if you own Doge, if you own Bitcoin, if you own ETH, if you own so many of the other stuff that's out there, effectively what you're doing is speculative trading. Speculative trading, especially when it comes to currencies, is a zero-sum game. Your winning is somebody's loss, and somebody else's winning is definitely your loss. Where does that sit with gambling?
Okay, firstly, with futures, with Bitcoin, all of them include you purchasing a commodity. You're actually purchasing something.
Well, not necessarily.
Huh?
Forget about it being virtually.
No,
but
that's what
it's a physical purchase, is what Sheikh is saying, and it's not necessary that
so
you're actually making
when
a
I buy a
purchase.
share, I'm buying a piece of a company. So I'm purchasing I'm investing in something. When I buy a currency, I'm purchasing that currency. See, the value of the currency is what I invest, isn't that right? Okay, with the speculative trading, which I don't know anything about, what is it exactly?
So
Am I purchasing something, or am I taking a gamble on someone losing or winning?
the gamble is always there, right?
No. There's a difference between, see, in investing in a business, I'm taking a risk.
Yeah,
But it's not really a gamble per se.
right.
You know what I mean? It's not
Right.
a game of chance. It's sometimes people can read the market. Sometimes,
Sometimes,
you know, there are people that can read the
Yeah.
market.
Yeah.
Some people don't. Like if you're someone that invests in blue chip companies,
Yeah,
and you know, and know how you're buying and selling, like they tell you invest in this. Like I think I told you, one of my friends back in 2017 told me to buy Tesla.
yeah,
And they were $63 a share. Now they're 1,100. I didn't listen to him, but he's someone that invests. He kept telling me, buy Tesla, buy Tesla, buy. I wouldn't listen to him, but anyway,
yeah.
this is where he was. So someone that reads the market as it is, but that's different to this other thing
Yeah,
you're saying.
so an investment decision is different to a speculative decision, right? I know it can get really technical and whatnot, so I just wanted to put it out there that it is something to be conscious of when making these sorts of decisions, that a speculative investment or a speculative trade can be akin to gambling. I reckon it's going to go up. I've got no reason to say it. I just think it's going to go up. I'll put $100 in and see what happens.
I need to fully read on this and
Yeah.
understand it,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
see what the opinions of the scholars
Yeah,
and the jurists are.
it's a really
I won't understand.
unclear sort of. Yeah.
I need to understand what it is,
No
if
problem.
you're
Thank
actually
you.
purchasing or
Thank
not.
you, Sheikh. Thank you very much. Here's an interesting one, Sheikh. How haram is eating non-halal meat? Say beef, chicken, lamb, that is not slaughtered halal. On the scale of haram, where does this sit?
Do you know, someone asked me a question today. He said, what's the most haram thing? You know, look, we have a hadith. And that's it. You know, a lot of people say shirk. Al-shirku billah wal-iyadu billah. We have a hadith that says the worst sin committed is the sin that's taken the lightest. The one that I think is nothing. Why is it the greatest sin? لأني جعلت الله أهون الناظرين إلي. That I have made Allah into someone that is petty. What's he going to do, kind of thing. That's why it becomes such a great sin. Because I have basically taken no account or given no credit to God's wrath.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the sin so bad.
And the gravity of what he tells you, that he tells you, don't sin, right? But then you lighten it and say, like you've said, what is he going to do? Or don't worry, God will forgive me.
We have also Hadith Qudsi, that someone that commits a sin without any care, they just do it, wala yubali, he doesn't care. Allah says, I will throw him in any door of hell, wala ubali, and I don't care. In another hadith, when it comes to eating halal and haram, The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam in the Isra and Mi'raj, he says he sees people that in their hand they have succulent meat in one hand, and the other one they have rotting meat with maggots and all this kind of stuff coming out and a stench that is so pungent.
Yeah.
And they try and eat from the good meat and they can't. So in the end, the hunger forces them to eat from the rotting meat. And he asks, what's their plight? Allah says that they had permissible meat to eat in the dunya, but they took the non-permissible meat. So this is how bad it is for you to eat haram. Some people think, all right, if I just go get, I remember when I was with this guy, I was a teenager at the time, and he wanted to go to McDonald's. I said, you can't go, it's haram. And he said, I want to go with the one that was in Tempe. So I went through the drive-through, and I said to the people in the drive, I said, what do you cook? At that time, I don't know what they cook with now. And the chips and all that was cooked in animal fats. Mm-hmm. And he still ordered. You know, he didn't care. Okay, but I won't say what happened after. We had a bit of a fight. Then later on in his life, he travelled somewhere really far, and there was no halal meat because the fight worked out. He drove all the way back to Sydney to get meat and go back.
Wow.
Yes, I had a big effect. Or that was one of the rare ones. You actually have an effect. But to eat haram meat is really bad. In fact, to eat from where, especially for meat, and I'll explain why meat's different. You know how everything you assume is tahir when you see it.
Yeah.
I assume this table's tahir, the floor's tahir. Everything you give a positive look when you first see it, except what? Meat. Meat's all haram until you are certain it's halal. All meat's haram. From the beginning, you see meat's haram. You have to be certain this meat that you're eating is halal. That's why if you take a look at the fatwa that speaks about, for example, you look at the e-foods, you know, the e-codes?
Yeah.
Some of them can possibly have meat, and they can possibly be plant-based, you know? A lot of the 600 series or something like that, they are like the 621, 631, 635, those. They could possibly be animal. The fuqaha say if the doubt is between them being plant or animal, you don't have to investigate, you can eat them. However, if the doubt comes like gelatin, where gelatin is animal based, I have to investigate whether it's halal or haram, because it's animal based. So, and a lot of people come up with the fatwa from Sistani's office that says if the debate is whether it's animal, but he bases it on what someone tells him that gelatin, but gelatin's only animal based.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as gelatin that's non-animal based. Non-animal based, usually they use pectin,
or
which
agar.
is similar, huh?
Or agar.
Or what?
Agar.
Agar?
A-G-A-R.
Oh, A-G-A-R.
Yeah.
I thought it was a jar. Like a door being a jar. No. So that's the other thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there was other things. I remember when we were kids that they used to tell us 471, 472, all those were haram. We found out later they were chemical compounds. They were all esters at the time. Yeah, but it wasn't ester. It's actual chemical compound. So it's changed its chemical properties generally with those. With the 47 series, actually esters, unless it's changed. Yeah, isn't it an ester? Oh, good. You can. Yeah. But if it doesn't, you still is a possible. But even with the animal, it is an ester. Just can you research that? Can someone have a look at it right now, and then interject later?
So in that, you've mentioned gelatin, Sheikh. So if it's stamped halal on the packet, say there's a packet of steaks we've got in the cupboard, and it's got a halal stamp on it. It's gelatin, and it's made in Australia.
Yeah. Look, generally I would eat it, and the reason why, because Australia's got a pretty big halal market in that, and they won't just put halal. If you actually investigate them, they generally
Yeah, they're very strict about
They're
it.
very strict with this. Otherwise they lose their credibility
Yeah.
as a business. But other than that, you can practice precaution there.
Yeah.
But if you're over, you know those people that don't let you eat anything because everything becomes haram. If
become
you're
a
one of
vegan.
those, you'll probably end up eating nothing because you'll find everything to be haram if
Yeah.
you investigate. If
Yeah.
you use overly
Overdo it.
diligent. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Okay, Sheikh, let's move on. Is it okay to have friends that are not mahram? And if so, how okay is it?
Look, it depends how you define friend. You know, for me, there are people that are colleagues that I talk to with regard to work or talk to at school, you know, with regard to education. There are people I have to interact with in my day-to-day life, but I don't call them friends. They're people, acquaintances, the people you know.
Yeah.
A friend is someone that I hang out with and I joke with and I have a laugh with. So if I'm going to hang out and joke with a non-mahram, that's haram. It's absolute, because with a non-mahram, if we're hanging out, we're watching a movie together, you're going to be joking, you're going to be laughing, you're going to be poking fun at each other, and you're going to be crossing boundaries, just as you cross boundaries with your friends, you know.
So the boundaries are essentially what's
Unless
hijab.
you define friend as differently. That's the way friend is defined.
So the boundaries are hijab, right? And it's not a physical hijab; it's a philosophical hijab. It's a non-physical hijab where those boundaries are non-physical.
I don't like to use the word hijab because hijab means covering.
Yeah.
It's got to do with the dress code. It's got to do with modesty and
That's
chastity.
what I'm getting at,
It's
yeah.
afaf.
Yeah.
With everything, there's modesty.
Yeah.
Yani, one question I was asked, for example, why is it that men and women perceive this differently? Why is it some people think that they can gawk at women as they walk past? Okay, we have a hadith on Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. He says, "Afu an nisa an-nas ta'afu nisa'akum," which means be modest when it comes to the women folk of other people, in order for your women to become modest.
Yeah.
If I become, you know, like these guys that have Instagram accounts and they're liking every girl that shows her cleavage, and then his wife catches, oh, geez, I'm just admiring the background or something. When you do stuff like that, don't be surprised when someone in your family ends up doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Because you found this, or you've made this to be something that is acceptable. It's never acceptable. It's never right. It's always wrong. You know what I mean? So anytime I want to, anytime that I want to look at something like this, I need to take that into consideration.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. So there has to be boundaries between the genders.
Yeah.
If there isn't, you can't even have khilwi between gender. We can't sit alone with a non-mahram. A guy and a girl that aren't mahram cannot be alone anywhere. And when I say alone, there it means away from onlookers. It's subject to interpretation. And from what I understand, even if you're alone somewhere, where I'm in a public place, in the eye of people that don't know me, that's alone. Because you can do what you want, no one knows where you are.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not mahram, you shouldn't put yourself
In that position.
in these positions.
Yeah. Thank you, Sheikh. Just coming back to the gelatin very quickly, what if something says it has gelatin on it, but it doesn't have a halal stamp, or it doesn't say whether it's specifically halal or haram or anything?
You have to investigate.
Okay.
You have to invest. You know, I look at sometimes products and I look to see. When I was a kid, I always wanted to have a Buffalo Bill. And I've never had one. So every time I look, I go, one day it's going to lose the gelatin. But it always has it there.
Good on you, Sheikh. Okay. That your mention of social media actually brings us on to another question. what are the best precautions when using social media? What should be our limitations? Should there be any limitations?
It's so hard, man. I've tried every type to see how they are. Like TikTok is the devil. Like you go there, bang, you get a video on your face. La ala al-bil wa la al-khatir, as they say. And you go, dear God, how do I get out of this? You know, when I pull the plug, how do I... See, that's the problem. I don't know how Snapchat is, but at the time it had advertising. You get all this weird stuff come up too. Facebook, I hated Facebook because I'd find out things about people I didn't really want to know. Because not that they put them up, someone would tag them somewhere.
Right.
You go, dear God, this person goes to this place. I don't want to know that.
But aren't you impressed by the wonderful breakfast that they're having today?
That's all right. See, that's not my issue. My issue is other things. Someone tags someone at a club or something, you go, dear God, that they've been there. And another thing is, you know that guy, you people know about that girl that disappeared in Western Australia.
Chloe Smith,
the one that got
child.
kidnapped.
Yep.
Did you know how the guy kidnapped her? No. He had been following her mother on Facebook and found out they're going to camp there.
Oh my God.
So it was all based on him following the family on Facebook, and you know how everyone loves to let everyone know what they're doing?
Yeah.
Until he found out where they were going to be, and that's how he kidnapped her.
Wow.
So that's something you don't know who's watching.
Yeah.
Okay? It's something for you to actually think about. Other than that, like I've tried them all. The thing is, you can still use some of them, but you just got to be careful. I refrain. The only one I got control of is WhatsApp or Telegram or something.
Yeah.
But I don't have control on these, so I abstain from them, using them for that reason, because I can't. Because you go there, you don't know what people's... You friend someone and they like things, you go, dear God.
Yeah.
You know?
I regret friending that person.
And then you mention it to them and they go, oh, I didn't mean to... I'd rather give them a good excuse and not know what they're doing. But how you use it is important. A lot of people benefit using them.
Yeah.
You know, when, for example...
It's like with any technology, it can be used for good and bad.
Well, look, the best investment I did was buy premium on YouTube. No more ads. That's the best thing I invested in.
Yeah?
Yeah, oh, it's unreal. Yeah, it's unreal.
That's not an advertisement, by the way.
Huh?
We're not advertising that, by the way.
No, I'm not. But it's a good thing. You can actually do it between you and 6 people, because you can do family.
For most people, that's
6
their entire
relatives,
household.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a... Because that way you can learn from there.
Yeah.
And you don't have to see the ads at all.
Yeah, that's good. Just by the by, my family and I, refer to Facebook as fitna book.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, you could use WhatsApp for fitna too, don't worry.
well, as many people have already.
Yeah.
Let's move on from there, and kind of related to that as well. Generally in society, we see billboards, we have friendships, we see movies, music, gaming. How important is it to be aware that not every norm in society is actually a good thing or is acceptable from an Islamic perspective?
What are the norms of society? I don't know.
Well, they're changing all the time,
They're
right?
changing.
As society changes.
It's not that. I think they suggest to you what the norms are. You know, like every time they want to push something in.
It's in a movie or a music
it's
video.
like they introduce it in that manner. Firstly, they bring someone on. I used to remember when we were kids and you're watching a television show, then they'll bring someone, for example, when I was in the late 80s watching a television show, they bring someone on that had AIDS and then how they deal with them. Because that was the
big issue.
Big issue back then. Yeah. And how, like, I remember in one show where one guy was drinking and he had AIDS. And he was drinking from a cup of juice, and then the main character, the protagonist in the show, picks up the juice and drinks after him to show, that's okay, you won't pass it on. And they did it, and that was like a statement to make people, it's okay to deal with them. And that's how they move things forward in the agenda direction they want. Rather than eliminate the cause of AIDS, now they celebrate the cause of AIDS. I even showed, it's funny, I even showed someone an article from the New York Times in 1982 where they actually say what the cause of AIDS was, back when it wasn't politically incorrect.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
I think the discussion and the
Yeah.
science, from what I understand,
Was,
has moved on from there to say that the cause is not related to.
oh well,
any
they do that with a lot of
proclivities.
they do that with a lot of things. It's called a brown paper bag, and it can affect research, and people know that. Well, why would the Heart Foundation say pork's good for the heart? Why would they say a schooner of beer a day is good for you? Why would they say that?
Well,
Why? You look at all the evils in this world. Honestly, what is the worst drug? Does anyone know? It's alcohol.
alcohol. Yeah.
Biggest killer. Why is it a celebrated drug? Why is it something? Why is it people never point it and say that's the problem? What? That's right.
Because
They'll-
it's taxable.
Huh?
Because it's taxable.
It's taxable, and they make it into a good thing, and it's a way of thanking someone. I'll buy you a drink. Why is it given, like, even in our community? I'll ask you a question. Was it worse in your eyes if your child owned a pub or if they dealt with cocaine? What's worse? Honestly, what's worse? Huh? Why is it in our community, people think it's cocaine that's worse? They're both evil, they're both haram, but the pub is worse. Alcohol is so bad and it's so evil, yet these people, they make it okay. And that's why I told you with research, that's the biggest problem. That the research can be swayed
Yeah.
by who's supporting this or who's pushing for this to be done. Why is it, for some reason, alcohol never gets a spotlight? That's why I don't trust the system.
Things have changed. When we talk about alcohol, things have changed in society generally. There's more awareness about alcohol-related
Drink
issues.
responsibly.
And don't drink and drive. The advertising on motorsport for alcohol is either eliminated or has been reduced significantly because of the association.
Yeah, but motorsport, but it's there in every sport. At the end of the game, everyone gets pissed.
Yeah, pretty much.
At the end of the game, everyone's tanked. Huh? They drink out of drink out of the trophy.
Yeah.
And it's still, it's a big issue. I remember when Wayne Pearce was coaching the New South Wales State of Origin team, and he was called Junior because he never drank. They used to call him Junior. And he took the football team for a horse ride instead.
Yeah.
That time, prop Robbie Kearns fell off a horse and broke his shoulder, and his collarbone, and they made a big issue out of it. They said, why couldn't he just go into a pub like everyone else, had a beer, and everything would have been all right?
Yeah.
That's the way that they see it. They couldn't agree. Why is this guy so against the drinking culture? Yeah. And that's the way it should be. This is what I'm trying to tell you when it comes to research and the way that they push agenda and make these into social norms. Mm-hmm. It's done in this manner. People are paid in order to move an agenda. I remember a friend of mine, he's written a whole book about how about the sodomite epidemic in the world right now. Yeah. And he wanted me to help him with some of the research, and I gave him an article to read. And then his voice message, he said, I thought this was a parody. I thought this, was satirical. He said, there's no way this could have been real. This was a joke. I thought you were having a laugh.
The article that you mentioned?
That I sent him.
Yeah.
And he actually said to me in the voice, I couldn't believe how silly you were to send me this. He goes, until I found out what you sent me was genuine. That's how bad. It's like, if I tell you some of the things that Donald Trump has done, you wouldn't believe them. Honestly, you wouldn't. And then when you see them, you go, dear God, this person actually did this.
How did he do it, and how did he get away with it?
And how did he get away with it? You think about this, how did he get away with it?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes I will let you see things, and you'll read about their agenda written by them, and it's from them, and you'll have no inkling of a doubt that this is a genuine thing. And then you go, oh my God, why do people totally ignore this? They actually have written how they're going to push the agenda through. Have you read the article?
No, I haven't.
It's an unbelievable article. Tells you how they're going to bring the sodomite agenda and then they'll push it all the way through. And the steps they're going to take. and where it was published and who the authors are, and you will not even find one person that says it's a false article. Everyone says it's a genuine article.
Wow. Okay.
They explain how they do it. So I'm not talking, this is not a conspiracy theory. It's not something where you have people that even deny it. So when someone always asks me, do you believe in the moon landing? I say, of course I do. They say, why? I say, because the space race was between the United States and Russia.
Yep.
Russia never ever denied the United States went on the moon.
Yeah.
So that's for me is enough to believe that it actually happened.
Yeah.
Because that would have been the first thing that they would have
That's
done
right.
and
Yeah.
denied.
You didn't actually do it. Prove that you did it. Yep.
Yeah, they never did that. So that means that for me proved that they did do it.
Yep. Yep.
Sorry.
So I guess what comes out of that is that we should question what are the norms in society with a view that perhaps they're not, with the lens of what our teachings are, that they're not necessarily good things, but we should assess them and evaluate them for ourselves.
Also, look, some of the things that they do teach you have Islamic origin, have
Yeah.
religious origin.
Yeah.
Even our laws are based upon Judeo-Christian belief.
Yeah.
But there are things that have been brought in and introduced that have nothing to do with religion. They're based on what's acceptable today. And when I say acceptable, listen, a lot of things that they say are acceptable, they're not actually acceptable. They tell you that's what everyone agrees to. Because it's like when you, when they say, for example, the state of Israel and what it does. If you ask most people, they don't accept the state of Israel. Most people you talk to, they understand what's happening. I remember I was working at this place and this lady walked in and she asked me for something. And then I found out she worked for the Red Cross.
Yeah.
And then she said, yeah, I was in Palestine. And I said, what? Never actually heard someone say Palestine. She goes, yeah, because Israel is this and that. And she said, I was actually pro-Israeli till I went to the country and I saw what they actually do.
Okay.
So when everyone sees the way the apartheid state is, you realize a lot of people, they're not pro.
Same thing happened in South Africa. Those who back in the 70s and 80s, until apartheid in South Africa was formally stopped, that they didn't really understand it until they went to see it firsthand.
Yeah. But the Western world actually took a stance against South Africa in the early 70s.
Yeah.
But nothing happened
Nothing
until
came
the
of it,
90s.
until...
Whereas with Israel, they support the apartheid state.
Yeah, that's a whole massive discussion.
Yeah, but they
in itself,
support it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They actually support it.
Yeah.
They're with it the whole way.
Yeah.
There's no two-state solution, nothing
Yeah.
of the like.
Okay. We have a question, a couple of interesting comments and questions here. Let's come to family and culture and whatnot, especially when it relates to females. Can you make some comments about Islam's position on females in education, careers, cultural expectations and cultural norms, when it and family expectations and things when it comes to females from an Islamic perspective?
Look, firstly, anyone that thinks male and females are alike is silly. They're different. Does that mean that they're not equal in the eyes of God? No, they're equal. They all both have the same opportunity to reach the same stations in the hereafter. But does that change the roles? So for those that negate the existence of gender roles, that is a lie. Because we know exactly that gender roles and the like exist in society and that they are there. Sometimes people ask questions like, have you ever heard the saying where they say chivalry is dead? Have you heard that?
Yeah.
And you say, what do you mean by that? They go, well, a guy doesn't open a door for a lady. They don't give the seat up for a lady. And the reason is because society has negated the existence of a lady. There's no such thing as gentleman and lady, or ladies and gentlemen. Like honestly, if the Titanic sank today, would you think the rafts would be ladies and children first? No, it'd be every person for themselves. We're all equal now. You know, you can swim the channel just like me. Bang, I'm jumping on the raft. That's what's going to happen. Because we're all now equal now, and that's the way society perceives everything. So we do still have gender roles in society. Can a male and a female get educated? Likewise, yes. Are there some roles suited for females as opposed to males, and vice versa? Yes. If I said, for example, as a male, would it be permissible for a male to be a midwife?
Yeah.
Think about that. What is a midwife doing? A midwife is in the process of assisting a woman in birth, and it's a form, it's a branch of being a nurse and working in down that path. See, this would have massive issues, massive implications. Another thing that I think, and I always have an issue with, is men that are female specialists, gynecologists. I just don't know how that could be acceptable, especially in the world today. It's 50-50, the balance of that position, because you won't find many female they're not called andrologists really, urologists. You won't have, I think they're about 1 or 2% of the world of the urologists are female, majority of them, because women don't want to do specialty on men, but men will do that specialty. So some jobs, I know a lot of medical practitioners won't agree with me that that's their prerogative. Okay, but if I look at, there are roles that are suited for men and there are roles that are suited for women. And not all roles are the same. The question here is, what field do they want to go down? Okay, I'm a very firm believer, and that's a personal belief, so don't shoot me. I believe a woman should get married and a guy should get married. Both of them should be, for both of them, before they go to university. I believe that they should have the aqd at least for marriage. Now people say they're too young, because people for some reason think there is a conflict between education and marriage. But when you go to university, the diversity in university and the openness, it throws people off religion. It really throws them off. So that will help in order for them to pursue their career. And I wouldn't do a job like, I've always had an issue with the lollipop ladies, not the ones that cross kids across, the ones that hold the stop
Traffic
signs,
management.
the traffic controllers. Like, you're working with guys, you're the only female there, and every guy is using double entendre when they talk to you, they're all hitting on you. How can you be comfortable in that position? So if I'm in a position in the middle of a place where I'm surrounded by men, it's an awkward position to be in. Huh? Well, there's other ways for them to get a lot of money. You know, if I'm looking at that as well, I might as well steal then. If, you know, it makes good pay, I might as well deal drugs, that makes good pay too. You know, if I'm going to look at it's got to do with pay, no, but it's unbecoming of a lady to do that. Yeah, that's what they do, but it's unbecoming of a lady to do this. Likewise with men working in a job where they're totally surrounded by women. It's unbecoming of them to be in these kind of positions, except in situations where it's a necessity to have the person there. So to say that there is any job where it be haram for a woman, if it goes against what the Islamic rulings are, then it's haram. I can't give you specific jobs other than the two that I suggested.
Sure. But in essence, Islam does support the women to be educated, to go through school, university, pursue an education, and have the option to pursue a career.
No one's against this at all. You know, I've never read from a jurist that opposes. In fact, the preventing women from being educated was a worldwide thing. You know, they've always had this. Don't let them learn. Don't let the females. You're talking about the world today has suddenly decided to take up what Islam has always been doing. Remember Imam Zain al-Abidin, what does he say about Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam? says you're alima. You're not someone that needs to be taught or was taught. In other words, you look at Fatima salamullah alayha, Sayyidah Zainab, Nafisa, all these females from what's her name? Fatima al-Masuma, they were all educated.
Yeah.
They were scholarly. So this is something that was normal.
You look at Sayyidah Khadija, she was the biggest trader on the peninsula.
That's right. So they were there.
Yeah.
They were in business. They were getting involved. It's not like that they weren't. You know, they were involved. They were in the forefront, and they involved themselves in terms of education and dealing. Yeah. But that doesn't mean when we say Sayyidah Khadija was in the forefront, that doesn't mean she was hanging out with men, negotiating with them. Yeah. It's not the way people perceive it.
There was a technique.
There was a technique. There was something behind all this, and the West recognized the importance of having women educated later on, but in the Islamic world, it was something that came out earlier.
Well, it's been only 100 odd years in the Western world from when women have been granted the right to vote, and less than that in many countries.
Well, that's only a new thing that was fought for it to take place. Women weren't given that right because they weren't given. There was many rights that we've discussed before that weren't given to women that are given now, but they're taking their rights away now. How they take because someone changes their gender, they're automatically winning all the female awards. Yeah. You know?
There's been a lot of
controversy. So the men are on top, both now, men
are
on top in everything now. Again, it's gone back to the way it was.
Okay, thank you, Sheikh. So essentially what we're saying is that there is nothing to stop a woman, a female, from being educated and pursuing a career.
I've never read anything that would stop them from being educated.
It's funny, one of the things you mentioned was about stopping women from doing that, right? And it's kind of ironic that you want to build a society, but the cradle of that society is your mother, is a female.
Well,
and if she's not educated, what is she going to pass on to you,
I'll
who's
tell
the
you
next
something
generation
funny.
of society?
Okay, I'll take a lady wants to go see a doctor, and then she says, "I want a female specialist." Yeah. And at the same token, her husband doesn't believe in having his daughters educated. Like if no one gets educated, how are you going to see your female specialist? But the thing doesn't mean I push my daughter or my son through uni. You can tell if your kid's cut out to make it through uni. As I say, I just want to push my daughter through uni, so I show I'm modern. No. If your kid, is not going to study.
Yeah, there's no point.
There's no point in, making him someone that is a hanger in a campus or something like that. There's nothing else.
There is a question here, just following on from what we talked about earlier, asking about some clarification around Bitcoin. I think we might take that offline, given that the whole discussion about trading, whether it's speculative or whether it's for investment or for whatever purpose, it's a huge area, and
it has to be specific.
And it's got to be very specific. Yeah, it's
because to buy Bitcoin, there's no one says haram to buy and
exactly. So if you're making an investment decision and you make your own assessments and you make your own decisions, go ahead and do it. But if you need to be aware of what you're getting into. If you're just taking a punt on something, if you're actually doing something to as a form of investment to create wealth or whatever it might be, right? It might be your job to do it too. Just be aware of what you're getting into. Maybe it's something we can address at a later point with a bit more research.
There's a lot of people have addressed this subject online.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's something we should spend a whole night on.
Sure.
Because I get bored even thinking about it, so imagine talking about it the whole night. Yeah. Someone's got a question, Hash.
Okay, no problem. Yes, you have a question. So is it haram to exploit someone for your own gain?
Is that your question? So how old are you? MashaAllah, well, basically taking advantage of anyone okay, where you're making them lose. See, if I take advantage of someone where we both gain, and for their own, sometimes younger people, they don't know what's good for them, so an older person takes advantage of them, but for their own gain as well, for that they benefit. There's nothing wrong with that, because they're pushing them in the right direction. For example, when your parents tell you that you have to brush your teeth, okay, there's a gain for me as well. Why do you think I'm so, get up and brush your teeth? Why? Because I don't want to go to the dentist later on. So there's a gain for me, but there's also a gain for them. They won't have cavities and that, They'll look after themselves. But where is it problematic is where I use you so I can make something and there's nothing for you except a loss. You know what I mean? This is where it becomes problematic and also haram. For example, where you look in some places in the world where they get kids to commit crimes for them, either to beg back in the old days, like for example the Dickensian times, when we talk about Charles Dickens, for example, Oliver Twist, not talking about the musical, the actual book, where they would actually get these people to pick pockets for them. They'd steal money in order to, so they use them, they exploit them in order to, that's haram there. So there has to be a benefit. There can't be an actual, but then exploitation wouldn't be the word to use.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you very much. Sheikh, I think we might wrap it up. We've had a pretty good, solid hour or a little bit thereabouts on this.
Does anyone have any questions on the ground at all? Feel free to ask. Because you are the most important people here, the people that actually have attended. So if anyone has any questions, otherwise.
I have one.
Okay, that's a good question.
If you don't mind, could you repeat the question?
Okay, the question is, what is the ruling if I'm looking after an orphan? See, an orphan can never be your child. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he had Zayd, they used to call him, Zayd was the servant of the Prophet. They used to call him Zayd ibn Muhammad, because the Prophet used to treat him so well, so they used to think he was the Prophet's son. So when Zayd got married to Zainab bin Jahsh, the Prophet became seen as the father-in-law. So then God commanded that Zayd divorces Zainab and the Prophet marries her, because you can't marry the wife of your son, just to show that they're not related. So there's no relation. So how do I deal with it? There is things people will do. In the old days, for example, I know people are going to say, dear God, this sounds so wrong, but this is what they used to do. And it's permissible under law. Say someone was going to send their wife to Hajj, and there'd have to be someone to look after her.
Mahram,
But they wouldn't have a mahram. So what they would actually do is they would do a aqd, mut'a between the man and the daughter of the woman for say 1 hour.
Right.
That's it. Just it's a verbal thing, and after 1 hour it's finished. And then that woman would be what? Would be what's it called? The mother-in-law of the guy, so she becomes his mahram.
Yeah.
So it's worked. Do you understand what I mean? So they would do that. So that was one way for you to make the person halal on you. So say it's a female, for example, and I want her to be halal on me or whatever, then I'd have to do something like that. Otherwise, when they reach the age where they become baligh, or the age where they can mayyiz, be able to distinguish between what's attractive and what's not, and understand, then I'd have to wear hijab with them. That's the ruling. Otherwise, they can't ever be your mahram. You know, that's the only way for it to be done.
Yeah. It's a difficult subject. It's pretty challenging, and there are some very clear answers, or there are some very clear lines when it comes to the rulings. But as Sheikh was suggesting, there are some ways to work within those rules for an outcome that can work for you. And it's a similar sort of situation with adoption as well, isn't it, Sheikh? So essentially the same sort of situation.
Well, that's the way it works in that matter. If you want to adopt, because technically you can't adopt Islamically in that manner. You can't adopt. That's why they've always had that concept of orphanages, and they raise them in that way, and that's the way it's been. Or they'd let them live in their house and observe. You've seen those. They have them in India. What do they call it? The joint family system, where they'd all live in one house.
Yep.
But if you were to live in that system, and you have houses like this, where they just say Ya Allah every time they live in the room, make sure everyone's wearing hijab. That's how it starts working. Ya Allah, and go for a walk.
Fair enough.
It's difficult, but that's the way it was.
It's not easy. Sheikh, thank you very much for joining us this evening, and thank you for all of your answers, your advice, and your wisdom, and sharing it with us. Thank you, everybody, for being part of the program this evening. Yes,
I just want to, before you finish,
Sure.
I want to read the verse altogether. For everyone that's doing the exams, inshallah, over this period, for Allah to assist them,
Sure.
and also for Allah to fulfill anyone's haja.
Sure.
So if you could all together read it together, and then I'll let you wrap up. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 يا الله يا الله يا Allah. We ask you, Allah, on this night to assist everyone right now in the time of the examinations, because I've been asked for this dua from the believers. Inshallah, they overcome the examinations, and anyone else that's going through a hardship right now. Oh Allah, alleviate all the stresses and the discomfort that they have, and allow them to see a passageway ahead or a light ahead, in order for them to overcome their problems. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والأرواح أمواتنا جميعا رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على